The Young and the Restless Spoilers a long-awaited reunion. Damien's arrival in Genoa City. Damien stepped off the plane with a bright smile and a hopeful heart. The crisp air of Genoa City felt like a new beginning, a fresh chapter in a life that had been marked by uncertainty and longing. As he adjusted the strap of his bag on his shoulder, his eyes scanned the crowd ahead, eager to meet the people who, until recently, had been strangers. How would they treat him? Would they welcome him into their lives with open arms, or would his presence stir discomfort in the delicate balance they had built? For Damien, this wasn't just a trip to a new city, it was an emotional homecoming. He had spent years wondering about his origins, yearning for connections he never knew he had. Now, as he walked towards the exit, he tried to keep his demeanor calm and composed, especially in front of Nate, the brother he had only recently discovered. Nate, always the epitome of poise and control, had been unexpectedly warm. He greeted Damien with a relaxed, genuine smile that seemed to say, "I'm glad you're here." Nate's perspective, a mixture of pride and wariness. Nate was a man who prided himself on stability and strength, but Damien's arrival had shaken something in him. Perhaps it was the realization that family, in all its messy and unpredictable glory, could be both a blessing and a burden. Yet, despite his reservations, Nate couldn't deny the satisfaction he felt in orchestrating this reunion. It wasn't every day you helped reunite a mother with her long-lost son. Still, a small voice in the back of Nate's mind whispered doubts. Was this too good to be true? Could Damien's arrival bring harmony, or was it the prelude to chaos? For now, he pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the moment. As he stood next to Amy, Devon, Lily, and Abby at the airport, he reminded himself that family bonds, however tenuous, were worth the effort. The emotional welcome the moment Damien came into view, Amy's composure crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she broke into a run, her arms outstretched to embrace the son she had lost so many years ago. Her sobs echoed through the bustling terminal, drawing the attention of passers-by, but she didn't care. All that mattered was that Damien was here, alive, and within her reach. Damien stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the intensity of her emotions. But as she clung to him, murmuring apologies and promises of making things right, something in him softened. He wrapped his arms around her hesitantly, then tightly, allowing himself to be swept up in the rawness of the reunion. "I'm so sorry," Amy whispered, her voice cracking. "I never stopped thinking about you, praying for this moment. Please forgive me for what happened. I'll do anything to make it up to you." Damien swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. He had spent years imagining this moment, but the reality of it was far more overwhelming. "It's okay, Mom," he said softly, the word mom feeling foreign yet strangely comforting on his tongue. "We have time to figure everything out." Devon's skepticism standing a few steps away, Devon crossed his arms, his brow furrowed in skepticism. The scene before him felt theatrical, almost too perfect to be real. Were they serious? He thought, his gaze flicking between Amy's tear-streaked face and Damien's cautious smile. Was this some sort of melodramatic performance? Devon had always been wary of grand gestures and emotional displays. To him, life was about actions, not words or tears. He couldn't understand how Amy could break down so easily, or why Damien, a virtual stranger, seemed to accept her apology without question. It all felt too convenient, too staged. But he kept his thoughts to himself, unwilling to be the one to burst the bubble of this fragile moment. Lily and Abby's quiet support. Lily and Abby, standing slightly apart, exchanged a glance. Both women understood the complexity of the situation better than most. They knew that reunions like this were rarely as simple as they appeared on the surface. There were years of pain and unanswered questions to navigate, wounds that might never fully heal. Still, they chose to focus on the positive. Damien was here, and Amy was trying. That had to count for something. Abby reached out to squeeze Lily's hand, a silent gesture of solidarity. "We'll help them figure it out," Abby whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the airport. Lily nodded, her expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. Nate's lingering doubts as the group made their way to the cars waiting outside. Nate found himself walking beside Damien. He stole a glance at his newfound brother, trying to gauge the younger man's thoughts. Damien seemed genuine, polite, even humble, but something about the situation gnawed at Nate. He replayed Amy's emotional outburst in his mind, her words echoing like a refrain. Was it all too much, too fast? Could this be some sort of elaborate setup? Nate hated that his mind went there, but his instincts told him to stay vigilant. He wanted to believe in the goodness of this reunion, but the cynic in him refused to let his guard down completely. Still, as they reached the car and Damien turned to him with a shy smile, Nate couldn't help but smile back. Maybe, he thought, just maybe, this could work out after all. A new chapter begins as the group drove away from the airport. A mixture of emotions filled the car: hope, doubt, joy, and unease. For Damien, it was the beginning of a journey he had long dreamed of, but never thought possible. For Amy, it was a chance to right the wrongs of the past. And for everyone else, it was an opportunity to redefine what family truly meant. But beneath the surface, unspoken questions lingered. Could they overcome the pain of the past? Would Damien's presence bring them closer together, or tear them further apart? Only time would tell. One thing was certain: the arrival of Damien in Genoa City was about to change everything. This narrative provides depth to the characters' emotions, their internal conflicts, and the dynamics at play. If you'd like adjustments or additions, feel free to let me know. The shadows of deception. Damien's arrival in Genoa City had stirred a whirlwind of emotions, but for Devon, one feeling stood out above all others: doubt. As much as he wanted to embrace this newfound family member, something about the entire situation felt off. He couldn't ignore the gnawing suspicion that things weren't as they seemed. And Devon was not the type to sit idly by when his instincts told him otherwise. Devon's demand for proof the moment they settled into the Abbott living room. With everyone still riding the emotional high of the reunion, Devon leaned forward in his chair, his expression serious. "I think we should do a DNA test," he said, his tone firm. The room fell silent. Amy stiffened, her hands gripping the edge of the sofa. She forced a shaky smile, masking the unease that flared in her chest. "A DNA test? Why would we need that, Devon?" she asked, her voice laced with a mix of innocence and irritation. "Isn't it obvious? Damien is my son." Devon crossed his arms, unfazed by her protest. "I'm not saying he isn't. But I think it's important to be sure. This is a big deal, and we need to handle it properly." Nate, sitting beside Amy, frowned. "Come on, Devon," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Why are you questioning this? Look at him. I feel it, he's my brother. We don't need a test to prove that." Devon shook his head. "Feelings aren't facts, Nate. I'm just saying, let's be sure." Amy's calculated response. Amy had anticipated this. She knew Devon wouldn't accept Damien's story at face value. He was too practical, too analytical to be swept up in the emotion of the moment. That's why she had taken precautions. With a quick glance at Damien, Amy placed a hand over her chest, feigning hurt. "Devon, I understand your concerns," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But I've already done the test. Before we even reached out to Damien, I needed to be sure myself." Her words caught everyone's attention. Even Devon raised an eyebrow. "You've already done it?" he asked skeptically. "Yes," Amy nodded. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I couldn't take any chances. I had to know the truth before I brought Damien here." She handed the paper to Devon, her eyes unwavering. "Here. This is the result." The fake DNA test. Devon unfolded the document and scanned it carefully. The paper looked legitimate: official letterhead, detailed genetic markers, and a clear conclusion: 99.99% match. For a moment, Devon hesitated. The result was exactly what one would expect, but something about Amy's demeanor still didn't sit right with him. Meanwhile, Nate leaned forward, glancing at the paper over Devon's shoulder. "There you have it," he said with a relieved smile. "That's all the proof we need." But Devon wasn't convinced. His gut told him to dig deeper, even if it meant upsetting the fragile harmony of the group. He folded the paper neatly and placed it on the coffee table. "I appreciate that you went ahead and did this, Amy," he said carefully. "But I think we should still get another test done, just to be thorough." Amy's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly composed herself. "Devon, don't you trust me?" she asked, her voice tinged with hurt. "I would never lie about something like this." "It's not about trust," Devon replied. "It's about making sure we're doing things right." Nate takes a stand. Before Amy could respond, Nate stepped in. "Devon, that's enough," he said firmly. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Damien just got here. He's trying to adjust, and you're already questioning his place in this family. Can't we give him a break?" Damien, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, glanced at Nate with a grateful smile. "Thanks, Nate," he said quietly. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to get to know all of you." Nate nodded. "Exactly. Let's focus on moving forward, not dwelling on unnecessary tests." Devon's jaw tightened, but he didn't press further. He could see that Nate had made up his mind, and pushing the issue now would only create more tension. Still, he made a mental note to keep a close eye on Damien and Amy. If there was something to uncover, he would find it. The obstacle of DNA collection. One of the challenges Devon faced was the logistics of obtaining a DNA sample from Damien without his knowledge. The obvious methods, strands of hair, a toothbrush, or even a glass, weren't viable because Damien's bald head and cautious nature left little room for error. Every interaction was calculated, every move deliberate. It was as if Damien knew someone might try to test him. Amy, for her part, had ensured that Damien would be difficult to pin down. She had coached him on what to say, how to act, and most importantly, how to avoid leaving behind anything that could be used against him. Her meticulous planning was paying off, and she was determined to keep it that way. The seeds of suspicion. As the days passed, the family began to settle into a new routine. Damien quickly endeared himself to Nate, who was more than happy to take his younger brother under his wing. The two spent hours talking, laughing, and bonding over shared interests. Nate's protective instincts kicked in, and he became Damien's fiercest advocate. But Devon couldn't shake his unease. He watched Damien closely, noting every interaction and every subtle detail. The more he observed, the more convinced he became that something wasn't right. His skepticism began to spread to Lily and Abby, who, while supportive of the reunion, started to see cracks in the facade. Amy, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to maintain control of the narrative. She knew the stakes were high, and one misstep could unravel everything she had worked for. But as tensions simmered beneath the surface, she couldn't help but wonder how long she could keep the truth hidden. A dangerous game. Unbeknownst to the rest of the family, Amy's deception was more than a desperate attempt to reunite with her son, it was part of a larger plan. What that plan entailed remained a mystery, but one thing was clear: Amy was willing to do whatever it took to protect Damien and secure their place in Genoa City. As the days turned into weeks, the family found themselves walking a delicate line between hope and suspicion, truth and lies. And while Damien seemed to settle in seamlessly, the questions lingering in Devon's mind refused to fade. Would the truth ever come to light? Or would Amy's carefully constructed web of lies succeed in keeping the family and their secrets intact? One thing was certain: the arrival of Damien in Genoa City had set the stage for a battle of trust, deception, and family loyalty. And the stakes had never been higher. This version adds layers of tension, intrigue, and character dynamics to the story. Let me know if you'd like to expand or refine any part of it further.